All right. It looks like we are live, and we are two QHHT practitioners. I'm Sally Knopp, and with me is my compatriot. It is Lorenda Carr, lorendacarr.com. And she's also a psychic medium. So she's got a lot of talents, and we do quantum healing, hypnosis, and energy healing. And we decided to get together to talk about some of the miracles or the most unexpected events in doing a QHHT. And to set the stage, Lorenda and I want to share, and just to kind of give you an idea, this is Nostradamus. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and play it because she says it way better than me. But this will give you an idea of the topic that we're going to be talking about tonight and some of the things that she and I have encountered doing this work. And I think you're going to find it really fascinating. So, Lorenda, do you want to say anything before I hit the go button on it?
You know what? I'm just jumping in right now. I'm actually live on TikTok as well. So I'm going to let you play the music. I'm going to get my other guests settled in. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really fun discussion. I can't wait.
Awesome. Great. All right, here we go.
They say it's the strangest case that's ever happened in the history of hypnosis. You can't call it channeling, you can't call it him, and contacting Nostradamus while he was alive, living in the 15th century, 1500s in France. But it happened totally by accident about 10 years ago in 1986 when I was working with a woman who just wanted to go into a past life to see if she had a past life. There was no problem. She didn't want any therapy. But during the course of the regression, some very strange things began to happen. We didn't set out to contact Nostradamus. I don't think you could have. It was something that was totally unpredicted and simultaneous and spontaneous. But during the course of the session, she went back to a lifetime where she was a student of Nostradamus in France. And that's when everything got very strange, because as this male student, she was talking about Nostradamus, and suddenly she said, "He wants to speak to you." And I was totally, shocked, because anyone who does this kind of therapy knows that does not happen in this kind of therapy. And she said, "He has a message for you. He had been looking for a link to the future because he could see that the prophecies where he had written were not being correctly interpreted. And the time was coming when they were going to come true. When he says he has an assignment for you, he wants you to get the book that has the prophecies in them in French and English, and he wanted me to read them to him, and he would tell me what they meant and explain all of the code that has been lost for 400 years. He would explain every symbol, every anagram, and tell me what part of history. At that time, I didn't even know what a quatrain was. The quatrain is a 4-line poem. In the case of Nostradamus, a 4-line prophecy. And he wrote almost 1,000 of them. And not even half of them have ever been correctly interpreted. And some of them have been interpreted after the fact, after they've already occurred. So it was quite an assignment. But when the woman woke up and I told her what she had said, she was so frightened she moved to Alaska. So you can't say I started it. You can't say she started it. There was something very peculiar at work here that is still difficult to explain to people.
I'll stop it right there because she actually went through probably, what was it, Lorenda? 3 or 4 people to get to Nostradamus. So she would work with people and say, "Are you open for the exploration?" and see where it takes you. And then through the guided meditation, she was able to reconnect to Nostradamus through, I think, either 3 or 4 people. And the story that she talks about on Dolores Cannon on Nostradamus, and you can get the books on Amazon or Ozark Print. You can go through that website as well. I'll try to leave the link in the description box below. But it is a fascinating story we can actually play on. But it is giving us a jumping off point. And Lorenda, I think you have a story that you are red hot ready to share about one of the most exciting or unexpected events that you've experienced during a QHHT session. But let me set the stage first. Because Lorenda and I work together, I do the energy healing and clearing and getting people to a place where they are able to get into the deep theta state a little bit easier. And I've also worked with Lorenda quite a bit. And as she's gone down, with each time that she's gone down, we were able to get her to a higher and higher place, to where now when she sits down with people to do a QHHT, the information now is almost like a simulcast where it comes into Lorenda. And as you, as the participant in a QHHT experience, can be, say, looking forward, she'll say, yes, but look to your right. And then she'll see almost the same thing. That's the experience, to me, was the most unexpected that we've had to date. And Lorenda, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that.
I'm trying to remember which one. We've done this so many times. Gosh. So yeah, I do. That is pretty wild though. Anytime I've done the QHHT and being a psychic medium, I can go in and like somewhat remote view. So I can tell them, turn right, turn left. Oh, what do you see over there? Do you see anything shiny? What do you see over there? So it is a pretty wild adventure, but I've had so many just really fascinating experiences sitting in the chair next to the person being put under even. So it's kind of cool because I have both perspectives of being able to know what they're experiencing to a degree. And of course, now I'm drawing a blank. Like which story did you have in mind?
Well, there's been so many.
I know. Gosh, I'm kind of like, wait, which one was it? Which one was it?
Yeah, we talked about it just like last week. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to believe it. You've had so many recently. But that one just really stood out to me because, you and I worked so much. I being working as the person sitting in the seat doing a QHHT with you, and you're so easy anymore to go, I hate to say the word down, but it's down, but to put you down. Yeah, we put you down, but using the keyword, and you go like right now. And then you slip right into the experience. And we've done a lot of work where we've activated the DNA strands, which has really leveled you up. And after we did that, you're like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened. You're just like, you called me up, you said, Sally, I'm sitting here with my client. And not only is she telling me what she's seeing, but I'm seeing what she's seeing. And I'm like, look right.
Right. And that came with all the DNA activation. So, and what's funny is I love to tell the story how I didn't believe in any of it. But the thing with the MDH, when you would put me under and ask questions, like you'd take me through a lifetime and we'd do healing, and then we'd connect to other people and we'd do healing, whatever. But then you'd always circle back and be like, okay, we're going to ask some woo-woo questions. And then with those woo-woo questions, it'd be all things that you've never talked to me about. I wouldn't know no rabbit hole deep enough for me to be interested in going down to learn about those things. And I remember my conscious mind, you were going, and what about the something straight? I couldn't even tell you something about DNA strands. And my conscious mind's like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. What are you talking about? Old DNA, junk DNA. My mouth, on the other hand, is going, and blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, strange. Well, so then we started where you were energy clearing me, you're activating DNA. Well, then what happened was then all of a sudden, when I was doing QHHT for my clients, and what was happening was I had never implemented really my mediumship into the QHHT experience for my clients. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm seeing what you're seeing. And that's when it started happening. So by activating all that DNA and doing all these things, um, it was bizarre. It was a really cool experience because I was able to see and help guide them through that. So things that maybe because I think sometimes what I would find was there were things that I would see, and I tell people before they go under, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to try to get you to say as much as you can because we want to get on recording. You're not going to remember it later. If you're deep enough under there, you may not remember the experience, which doesn't happen very often, I'm finding, but that's a whole other discussion. So I tell people, what do you see? What's to your right? Go to a mirror. Let's go find a reflective surface. Look what you look like. Describe yourself. And I found that I was starting to see exactly what they were describing the more I prompted them to do it. And it was really cool with all that. But then now I've started especially if QHHT clients come and they're looking to get into a spiritual journey, they're starting to tap into their mediumship. They're tapping into intuitiveness. I will ask their higher self when we transition to the higher self. I'll be like, hey, so you know how Sally and I talk about this DNA stuff? Like, I don't even have the language for it. That's how not connected to it I am, but I know it works. I'll say, or their higher self will volunteer the information. The number 10 is very important for you, or, like the 10th DNA strand or whatever, 5th DNA. And I'll be like, so can you activate that for them? Absolutely. And what are they going to see from that? And they'll name off everything that's going to happen. And when I do a follow-up with those clients, they're like, yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened. And they're starting to be able to move into their spiritual journey more. So it's kind of cool because this QHHT stuff is not just for past life. It's not just past life experiences. It's good for current life, understanding where you have been, clearing unneeded energy, and then moving into how do we best utilize everything we learned from all these into the future and take this knowledge and clear all this, activate the junk DNA, do whatever we're doing with all the woo-woo stuff that, again, I just know it works. And so, yeah, that's where we are. But there have been some really cool experiences where once, especially if I have you clear energy on people prior, they not only just kind of see the people they were in their past life, they become them.
That is an entirely new level too.
It is.
Because when we were both doing QHHT on our clients, there was probably, and Dolores Cannon was right. She would say in our training, you're not going to capture everybody. And, I'm always like, why not? And, there's various reasons. Usually it's, I want the popcorn in the movie.
And there's a place for that. There's a place for that.
There is. And so when, COVID came and I got into energy clearing and healing and learning all the things just by going into QHHT. And that's the thing that stands out to me the most is during COVID and whatnot, you and I were still able to continue to work together. And when we did that, we began to learn from each other. So I would put you down and then you would go, well, check this. And then I would go back and check it and like, whoa, you're not going to believe this amazing things happen. And oh, by the way, we're going to start activating junk DNA. And you're like, what?
Like, what is this we're talking about? This sounds like alien stuff to me.
Right. And so we started using that with our clients. And I think it's been profound on this end when I do our follow-up with our clients, that when you and I are working together and I go through, and it's not what I almost hate to say energy healing. It's almost energy clearing to sort of tune them in a little bit more, like refine the channel. So when they come to you, they seem to go down much easier and the experience is richer. And since we've been doing that, that's why we wanted to do this video, because some of the things that have come through have been so unexpected. that I know that you've had several clients have come forward in your follow-up, and you would call me and say, oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe where we went.
I know. Well, and honestly, anymore, anytime I have a client at this point, especially if they've called you first, you're like, yeah, I'm not you. I'll clear your energy. You go do this. Like we're pretty much a partnership on that anymore. Like I'm just like, listen, included in your fee, I'm going to have my friend clear your energy just to make it a better. I don't even really give it much of an option anymore. I'm like, this is happening because I know that this is going to be a better experience for you. And we're going to get things activated. Now, I won't have you activate DNA or anything like that for those clients because I want that.
No, we just fine tune the energy in advance. Yes. So when they go into the experience, one, it's easier for them to go down. I think that's the thing that I've noticed the most. Most people come to us, and a lot of people come to us for healing. And so you've got to sort of get those anxieties out of the way, the frustrations, the fears. Is this going to work? Or, you know, it might work for everybody else, but I'm so nervous it won't work for me. And like, if you just listen to her voice, it'll work.
It'll be fine.
Right.
You'll be fine. Yeah, I don't know. I can't say I've really had, I would say since we started having you like clear that, fine tune that energy before we do them, I haven't had a single person not go down. Prior to that, I'd have people that would go under, but it was much more surface theta level because there was a lot of anxiety or fear. It's performance fear, honestly. Like they're like, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I do the wrong thing? Or what if something comes out that I don't want to come out?
Right. And it won't, because the subconscious mind will protect you.
That is very important to know, is that when you do a past life regression with your spirit team, there are I call them spirit HIPAA laws. Your higher self, your subconscious mind, however you view it, whatever you want to call it, they will not out you on anything.
Yeah, they won't out you. Or they might say, there are some issues that we can take care of. And you just like, okay, can we go ahead and take care of that now? Yes, we'll address that now. And they'll just go down. And I've had that happen to me. I had a gal that really was, she was really deep in her privacy. And it was okay. And it was really deeply rooted. And I said, okay, if it's okay that I don't know what's going on, so long as the higher self understands what is needed. Right. And they say, yes, a higher self, we understand what is needed. Okay, great. Can you go ahead and, do whatever they do? Right. And they said, yes. And it was addressed. And to this day, I have no idea what it was about, but she walked out of here feeling like a new person.
And that's the thing. Like, and sometimes people will leave and they won't feel any different. Some people will leave me like, I feel 100 pounds lighter right now, energetically. But then sometimes, like what I've learned from you is when I do QHHT, I will tell them, or we'll actually ask the higher self, how long before this gets integrated, or how long before you're done? Am I going to sit here and wait for a couple minutes for you to finish moving this? Or is this going to be a process? Sometimes it'll be like, it's going to take a couple of weeks to undo all this energetic stuff safely, where the person feels okay to do it. And they can go about their business and life gets better. And it integrates over time. But sometimes people will leave and just having the answers. Some people will leave and not realize how many questions they have that their subconscious mind will have answered. So,
and sometimes they're completely unexpected, and I've said this over and over. I've had people go into lifetimes. They're like, why would I be that person? So I had one gal that kept telling her husband, why are we poor? Why? I don't understand why we're poor. Why are we poor? Right. And I said, well, let's do a session and find out. Her higher self went to a place. This is so cool. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because it is one of my touch points when I talk about QHHT. When she went down and she went into a past life that most affects her today, and that was the critical point.
Right.
Okay, why are we poor?
Right.
She saw herself And as she did it, because of the work we've done, I could actually see it happening. So as she's telling me the story, I'm seeing it clearly in my mind's eye.
Mhm.
He's riding in like an 18th century buggy being pulled by a footman, I don't know, whatever they called, the buggy driver.
Buggy driver, the guy.
Yeah, the guy and the footman in the back. And, I could clearly see they were of extreme wealth. And it looked like it was around Williamsburg, Virginia.
Mhm.
And so when I narrowed it down, so can you tell me a little bit more where you are? Has there been a war yet? No. What are you talking about? No war. It was pre-revolution, and she was part of the Randolph family. And as she's exiting her plantation, there was an old man, bent over, scarred back slave
Mhm.
that they caught eye to eye. And he with this determined look said to her, like it was almost like mind meld,
Mhm.
never forget what you've done.
Ooh, wow. And that's huge in QHHT. That's huge. Remember that client that you had been working with for a long time, doing energy work, and you sent her to me. And the first thing she said when I opened the door, I was like, "Oh, hi, nice to see you." And she goes, "What if I hurt people? What if I was terrible?" I'm like, "Do you now? Then don't worry about it. Like, we'll see. You're gonna watch a movie." And she had a hard time going down at first, but then it was because of a past life. She had chronic neck problems. Remember who I'm
Yes.
talking about? Yeah, chronic
Yes.
neck and back problems.
Yes,
I
I forgot
know.
about her. My gosh, yes, that was
Yes.
astounding.
So she had chronic neck and back problems. Okay, so by the way, I'm TikTok live right now too. So if I'm looking up and back, just so you know, your viewers, I'm not like off into space right now. But I'm trying to get the viewers to come and watch the live stream. Miracles of Consciousness Radio, friends, make sure you go watch on the tubes of you. So anyway, she had been suffering from just neck and back problems her whole life. It's just, and really not a lot to explain it. But then I ended up working with her twice. Put her under the first time, and she had a really hard time going under. And I could tell it was because she was afraid. She was afraid of what she was going to see. She had 3 lifetimes that we explored. No, that first one was only 2, where she suffered from, like, one time she was a slave and um, and then she had another lifetime where she had fallen off of a horse. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, there we go. They got some chronic, let's release it. Could never really get in full
And
connection with her higher self, but she came back.
and isn't there a barn one she had? It was always neck
Yeah,
related.
yep, that's next. Hang on. That was
Here we
next.
go. Yeah, here we
So she
go.
comes back and she's like, I just did it wrong. I did it wrong. And she was so afraid of failure also. And I was like, no. You know what? Let's reschedule you. Let's get you back. And that was that was in my practice days. That's before I was certified. So I'm like, just come back. We'll figure it out. And she comes back. And by the time she came back the second time, I was actually certified by then. And she lands in a lifetime where she was in France, and she worked for the king, and her job for the king, she was male in that lifetime, was to behead people.
Guillotine.
Yep. And so once she was like, oh, and in that lifetime, she realized this wasn't me. Like, this wasn't my choice. If I didn't do this, they would hurt my family.
And
Would hurt
guillotine
my
all
family.
of them.
Guillotine
Yeah.
all of them.
Mhm.
So in that lifetime, she said, I have to remember this the rest of my life. I have to remember this forever. So I will never do this again. It was a conscious choice in that lifetime. But yeah, previous to that lifetime, going back to the barn, the horse, she had fallen and died a very slow death on in that one, where she had fallen and broken her neck. Like it was
Right.
just one after every single lifetime she experienced, there was neck and back trauma.
So, and what happens, and it's important for people to understand, if you don't deal with the stuff now, it's going to come back in
It'll
future
come back.
lifetimes. And it's going to, sometimes, most of the times, it gets worse each time. It's like, are you ready yet?
How
No.
about now?
Are you ready yet?
Yep, yep. And it's intention too, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we don't understand about how the higher self works. And when we have these life experiences, the energy that transcends, I'm sure there's a lot that we as humans don't understand, and we're not supposed to understand, you know? Um, so how's it bleed? How's it come over? How does it go from that lifetime into this lifetime? Is it intention? Is it accidental? Is it just there and we just never released it? But one thing that I will say is one of the big things that we're trained and told to ask is it necessary in this lifetime? Very rarely do I get yes. Sometimes I'll get a yes, it was necessary, but now we can let it go because it served them already.
Yeah, once they know what the lesson is, what is the
Mhm.
lesson? And in the analogy of the neck is she was constantly being reminded of an event that played out that she felt responsible for that she could not have gotten out of. It
Right.
would have cost her family and her. So
Mhm.
she did what she had to do
Yep.
in that time. And so, and then once you recognize that, then, then the pain goes away
Right.
because you realize, hey, I did all I could do.
Right. And you know what's really cool is I know when you've regressed me and I've released things from the past, I physically felt it leave my body.
Mm-hmm.
I physically felt it leave. And that's why I feel like even as a practitioner helping others, I can say for myself what has worked and what has not. And um that's why I just really love doing this because, you know, it does. It empowers people to take charge, see where it's coming from, why it's happening, and how to get rid of it. And they watch their higher self. They witness the healing themselves. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this on the screen. You feel that? You feel that? How you feeling? How you feeling? Are you cured? How about now? They are experiencing it. So hello, TikTok friends. Miracles of Consciousness Radio on the tube of you. Live right now. Go check it out. All right. So anyway, I have a lot of my regular followers following me, but also here in this, if you're not following me on TikTok and you are on TikTok, Lorenda Carr Medium, that's me. But don't watch me there right now. Watch me here. That's what we're doing right now. But we do see a lot of things that are nothing short of miraculous when we do this work. I mean, so the foundation that laid, and I do find it interesting because, Dolores Cannon really paved a way for us to do this work, or she and her husband. And it's so crazy to see how it has evolved just with the two of us, how different it is. Like she expected, like the expectation is when you get certified, you set aside your entire day to be with that client.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody's got time for that. So we've been able to tweak the process, get to the point, get to those questions, have people prepare ahead of time for things and get to the meat of and bones of what needs to be done. And I know her belief is that you could do all of it in one session. Because keep in mind, friends, you might sit for 4 hours and interview and talk about your life and give your whole life story. And then you're only down for 2 hours at most. Okay, maybe you and I've gone a little over. But that's because I built up a tolerance to it. But 2 hours and then another couple hours breaking it down and talking about it. But what we have found is by doing some of the energy work ahead of time, by activating DNA, by doing all these different things, conversations are much shorter. People come in, they remember things after the sessions, they go under faster, they have much more streamlined experiences. And so I feel like through our natural evolution as practitioners,
Yeah, and I should probably
pathway, but I feel like we've all of us as practitioners have evolved the practice.
we've just to kind of, in all clarity, some people are sicker than others when they come to me, and we will do full energy clearing and cleansing. So much of what takes place, I married Dr. Bradley Nelson with Dolores Cannon because they both seemed like they needed to come together.
Mm-hmm.
Where Dr. Brad was moving the trapped emotional energies out, and those emotions are frequencies,
Right.
and those frequencies can ball up if we don't deal with them, get caught in our bodies, and make us ill.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get all that trapped energy out and the body has time to level itself out, then by the time they come to you, it is easier for them to go into the deeper theta state and have a much richer experience. But
and remember it.
Mm-hmm. There was one gal that you talked about recently. I'll just use initials, JM.
Okay.
And she talked about she was surprised at the level that I think she went to, because it was so exciting. That experience was so exciting. You called me up and said, we just had, you remember her? And like, yeah, she's really great to work with. And we did, we did this, and she knew we were talking. So there's nothing, we all three are together in this.
Right.
And you're like, oh my word, you're not going to believe what happened. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, now I'm sitting here trying to remember it, because remember, I go in as a medium. Now I'm trying to remember her experience. Hold on. I remember everything that she wanted to accomplish, she did, and then some.
Yeah. She went like way over.
And she also went to the other side.
Yes. Like almost instantly, quickly.
Yes. Because usually what happens is when we do the QHHT, you go through a lifetime, you see what you're supposed to, and then you go to the last day in that lifetime to see how that lifetime ended, circumstances, whatever. And then I always encourage people to experience the leaving the body, because it's the coolest experience ever, and to turn around and look to see what the overall picture is. And then to say, we always ask, okay, so now that from that unique perspective, you can say, what was the lesson? What did I learn that lifetime? What did what was my purpose in that lifetime? And then you say, okay, would you like to move on, or would you like to go, let's see where you go next, or do you want to move to another lifetime? All of a sudden she's bam in like on the other side, experiencing the other side. And we do get that. We do get that. Sometimes people will go meet their spirit guides. Sometimes they'll go meet their loved ones. But it is pretty wild, like how she went so quickly, and she could see things and she would just bounce from, like, she'd be like, oh, and this lifetime, bam, and this lifetime, bam. And she could see it from this whole different perspective. It was such a unique experience. And it was just another example of why we continue, why I'm like, yeah, okay, y'all, well, just so you know, with your permission, we're going to have your energy cleared prior to you talking to me, because it's just such a unique and cool experience. But she got so much healing also from that session because of the things she got to see. And that she did Akashic records. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She went into Akashic records, and she was able to just be like, oh, and here's my book. Oh,
right. And that was the thing that was unexpected, because, I'd asked, I said, you think you can get into your Akashic records? Let's go ahead and try that. And she did. She went into it, and you're like, oh my gosh,
right.
She's like in the records, and she's reading it. And now, everything
right.
started clicked and made sense to her.
It
So
did.
it was so fascinating, really, you know. And we've done this for several years now, and we're still astounded, almost with every one of them.
Every client that I have, there's still some cool new thing. But now I will say, in fairness, I set the intention. Talk to my spirit guides. I'm like, okay, listen, I have limited time. Please only send me clients that not only really are ready to learn, that I can offer them something to help in their journey, as well as that I learn something. So then I come into every session with a very humble approach of like, what am I learning today? What's Dr. Mike got on the agenda for me to pick up today? And every single time I learned something new. And when she crossed over and went over to those Akashic records, I was like, that was effortless. She was just bam there.
Mm-hmm.
It was so cool because usually that just doesn't happen typically with clients.
No, but it would be a nice challenge to get into. And that's kind of what I was thinking about going forward with our new people to QHHT. Let's examine, because here's the thing. Here's what I've learned is that I've been doing ancestral work.
Mm-hmm.
And as I tune into the person who may have secrets,
Mm-hmm.
ancestors long dead, that
Right.
we're trying to piece together, how did we get here? And we need that pertinent piece of information you're withholding. Then I notice that if that person hasn't completely transitioned over yet, say they're lingering around as a ghost, maybe, that they will give you the narrative they want you to hear, even though it may not be right. So if you can go into the Akashic records. And for me, I go into my Akashic records. How did I get here? Now I'm not violating that person, long dead ancestor,
Right.
but in my Akashic records, on the DNA side, how did I get here? It lays it all out.
Yes.
That was mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, we found evidence of it.
Right.
That it made sense. So we looked for what could we get inside the Akashic records,
Mm-hmm.
going through me, because it matters to me and not through him. Then I can figure out, okay, we need to go look here for the physical evidence, which we did later. And I think for me, that was one of the most unexpected things I've ever done in all this woo-woo stuff that we've been doing.
I know. And you were like, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, I probably would.
You're right.
At this rate, literally nothing surprises me. You're probably like, I'm probably now just not as exciting when you're like, we had this great thing. I'm like, and we're always doing cool. You're always coming up with cool new things and spirits leading you down that path. And that's fascinating. Like when you told me that, I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And if you're looking for, and that's what I would love for future people those people who are looking for a QHHT experience, once you get with us and we get you set up to have that cool experience, you can come with your list of questions, but I challenge each and every one of you. Ask the question, can I see into my Akashic records? And go see what's there. Yeah. That is powerful.
Well, and you and I are familiar enough at this point with the process that we're able to navigate them through that too.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just said, oh, perfect example. Not everybody, and I'm not saying that you, by no means am I like, and we're just so great at this.
No. We're just two girls having a lot of fun with this.
But I will say we have a mutual client that did a QHHT and the practitioner shut it down because this person was crossing over, going to the light, and the practitioner was like, no, all of a sudden. And I'm thinking, if that happened, this person's not QHHT qualified. First of all, not a certified practitioner, because We're supposed to send him over. She took it as he was leaving his body and dying. Like,
We can't do that in this. We cannot do that.
I know. I'm like, you don't put someone in theta love. If anything, they'll fall asleep. They might fall asleep, but they're not leaving their body and
No.
transcending then. No, they're supposed to. And the thing is, he was immediately going and seeing that. And I'm like, you're supposed to. And also, how cool is that, that that's the first thing you did? And I have had people come in and they see fog and they're actually spirits. They're spirit guides. Did I tell you about that one? Did I tell you about that?
Oh, that's the one you need to talk about.
I had someone that landed and they turned out their lifetime that they were seeing, they were actually a spirit guide for someone else.
Wow.
And watching everything unfold and trying to guide this person and showing this perspective of what it's like to be a spirit guide. So, so on my TikTok, I get there, people are commenting. Somebody said, go to the light, Carol Ann. Do you remember that? Poltergeist. Go to the light, Carol Ann. That's funny. Good one, Regina. So anyway, there's so many different things that can happen. And as long as you've got someone who's qualified, who's experienced, that understands how it actually works, you're good. You're good. But yeah, like you said, go in with the intention of, okay, when I go, I want to go to the Akashic records. And if you're afraid it won't happen organically, then you tell the practitioner when they say, what are you hoping to get out of your session today? Okay, first of all, let's back up. If they don't ask that question, interject it yourself and say, so would you like to know what I'd like to get out of today? They should ask. But now I'm doubting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But you can tell them.
Yeah.
I would like to, because I've had this happen too, where we'll go through 3 past lives. And remember that time Jesus came in? Remember that time? That was crazy. Woman goes through, or the client goes through 3 lifetimes. She doesn't land because she was convinced she was in the time of Jesus. And she's like, I'm convinced I saw the whole thing. I'm like, well, I don't doubt it. Let's just see where it goes. Went through 3 lifetimes, very important lifetimes. No Jesus. And then we go to the higher self. And by that point, I am also kind of deep in this weird state, because I'll sit and people don't know this, but I sit and rock when I do the QHHT, when I'm facilitating, and I get into kind of a meditative state, which helps me help them remote view. Talking to the higher self, I'm allowing all this information to come in. And the higher self said, and I said, well, she was asking, was she alive during this time? And all of a sudden she gasps, made for TV stuff right here. She gasps and she's like, I'm there right now. I'm there right now. I'm like, what are you talking about? And all of a sudden I get an entity step in, identifies himself as Jesus. Now, we have no evidence of this. I know that's fine. We don't have to believe anything I'm saying. It's fine. However, in that moment, what felt like, I'm like, oh, okay, this is happening right now. And I'm seeing her perspective and my perspective with my face on the ground, looking at her like, don't move, say nothing. I'm in that moment with her energetically. And that happened when we contacted the higher self. The higher self said, oh, by the way, we're not done. You ask about Jesus, this is what we're seeing. And I got to be honest, I told her, I'm like, well, maybe not. You probably didn't. I mean, that's kind of a rare thing. Remember that time I said, I expect people, I have to learn something too.
Mm-hmm.
I will never in my entire life forget that.
Well, and we had set that up in the very beginning as we evolved since COVID, how you could tune in and see that you're already, a psychic medium. So therefore it seemed nice to actually transition into being able to remote view with your client as they're going through the process. I think the thing, one of our clients, when I was doing energy clearing on him, we did a remote view of his past life that most affects him today.
Mhm.
And since we've been doing this work, you and I, you put me down, I put you down, and we
Mhm.
involve each other, we go on and on and on. It's, to me, when people call me, if they don't have time to come in for a 3-hour sit down QHHT,
Right.
we can get a lot done. And one of the guys that I was talking to had this experience. So we wanted to look at the past life that most affect him today. And this is where consciousness is really crazy. He was holding in his mind what he thought might have happened. And it's almost like loose little pictures that makes sense, that makes sense. But for me, when I tuned into that radio channel, if you will,
You were like, nope, not it.
okay, and I said, don't tell him anything, because he was wanting to know if a friend of his, he was really close to this guy. It turned out it was his brother. They lived during the time of the Civil War.
Mhm.
The brothers fought on opposite sides, and he always felt really connected with his wife. And I felt like he died like on the Union side, but his heart was Confederate.
Mhm.
And I feel like his brother did fight for the Confederates. And his wife, his now wife, was his sweetheart back home, and he died suddenly, like of a shrapnel wound, so to the face and chest. And it was so astounding to me, because it played out, in my case, like a movie in front of me. I could see it.
Mhm.
And that guy friend was that brother. And, that's the thing that was so crazy. And then I hadn't even told you about it.
No, I
And
knew nothing about it, which, by
we
the way,
did,
for MDH, that's what we do. I go in knowing I don't even know the person's name. Most I like
no,
I
no.
know nothing
And
about the people.
no. And the cool thing about this whole situation, we call it multidimensional hypnosis by proxy. It's about like asking Edgar Casey a list of questions.
Mhm.
And this guy gave us a list of questions. I didn't say anything to you about it.
Nothing.
You go down, I start asking a list of questions, and you are repeating what I already said to that guy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is one of the most astounding events I've
Yeah.
had in doing a QHHT session.
And there
Because
were some
in essence,
clarifications.
that's what I'm doing with you is QHHT,
Yes.
and you're connecting to his higher self.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, that was wild, because then I came up and you were like, "You are not going to believe." And I'm like, "Okay." And what's crazy is when we do those sessions, I meet with the client a couple weeks later after there's been time for integration and all that, and then I chat with him. I end up chatting with him last week, actually, and he was telling me more of the stuff, but I was just like, it was just insane. It was just mind blowing to me, because I didn't remember anything. I had to go back and listen to the entire session again. So I'm like, first of all, why do I sound like that? And actually, even he got on, he was like, I got to say, you don't sound or look anything like, well, he couldn't see me on the video, but he's like, you look nothing like I thought you would. And also, you don't sound like you. Like, because I'm in that theta state, like I'm channeling. And as we've discovered, my higher self, I know this is going to shock everyone, especially on TikTok, is a smart aleck.
Oh, yeah.
Smart aleck. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I'm gonna remove someone here real quick. So like I said, for those of you just joining, I'm also live on my TikTok stream right now, just so, because I want people to know where I am and what we're talking about. And we talk about those. But then what happens is they say, "Ooh, a medium," and people pop in and put their personal information in. I'm like, don't give me that.
Yeah, we don't want to know that.
No, too many
No.
scammers. Too many scammers.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
it.
Don't do that.
Don't put your personal information. But also that goes back to the point where you were saying before, if it's going to be evidential, if I want to know authentically that I'm going into an MDH session, I don't want to know anything, because then all that was coming through my higher self, through the channeling, and then recorded. And then I talked to him later, and he was just like, yeah, I was convinced that he thought he had been like I'm on TikTok, so I have to watch my words. And he thought he died a different way, but a head wound kind of thing.
Mhm.
And he said, but it was shrapnel, and he actually
Yeah.
has pigmentation issues on his face.
Yeah, and I was like, and that's the thing,
In real
you know,
life.
that's where he got it from, you know? And it was just like, I could see it. It was just like, boom, and it was just right there, and it just took him out. Just and
Yeah.
then I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember that session so clearly because I was like writing it down. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
check, check.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when you came up, and I was like, oh my word.
Yep. Yeah. You know what I have not done, now that I'm thinking about it, I need to make a note. I need to go back and watch, because for us, we video record it for us for later.
Mhm.
Just have a record of it. And the clients receive the voice recording, because nobody wants to see me laying like, with my eye mask, because I'm bougie like that. Actually, my eyes just try to open, so I eye mask it. But you were even talking about how when I was doing work, energetic work, you could see light moving around my body on camera.
Yeah.
That was cool. So I need to go back and find that and maybe post that somewhere. I need to send that.
Yeah, it was definitely pulsating and moving.
Yeah. So we were catching
And
that.
it wasn't doing it prior to going down, and it didn't do it after you came up. It was just while you were down.
Yeah.
So
And I
the
could
camera
feel it.
is picking up something, like the camera picks up orbs, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was picking up
It will.
something.
But I remember you saying, is that you working? I think you were talking to my higher self. Again, my conscious mind is like, peace out. I got
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, cool, MDH, I get a nap. Like, that's where I am with that. I don't have to think of anything. But I remember I remember hearing you say something like about the work, and I could feel it. Oh, they were working on me. That's what it was. It wasn't for him. It was me working on me. And you could see that energy exchange. It was wild.
Yeah. And that's because we set the intention. If there's any fine tuning that you need to be done, your higher self, the higher self will go through and adjust you.
So they're asking who you are on TikTok. They're like, who's that disembodied voice?
Oh, I'm a disembodied voice. Woo.
Okay, so friends on TikTok, this is my friend Sally Knopp, and we do a lot of work together for energy work and QHHT. We're talking about QHHT, and I keep getting these requests for people wanting to go live. I don't think so. And so, but we are right now, if you want to watch both of us, you can see us on Miracles of Consciousness Radio on the Tube of You. TikTok has the weirdest filters. If you say just the wrong thing, they're like, and you're done, and they cut you out.
Yeah, cut you out. Yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is. But I have a pretty good following there. So if you're not following me,
well, we're coming up on an hour. Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up?
we could just talk about all this. You know what? Let's. I had two topics on here that we could have talked about, but I do want. Let's finish up with. When you're, because one of the things we talked about is like what wanted to talk about was like the surprises that happen during QHHT is the body movement.
Oh yeah, talk about that.
It's wild because. And I'll do it too. I've gone back and watched videos. I'm like, why are my hands moving right now? Or they'll just move. And it looks like I'm floating. But I have had people when they're under, depending on where they are and what they're doing, their arms will float. They'll just move randomly. And it's like that energy has to go somewhere. And that's how I can tell.
What do they call that? Like Tai Chi, where they're, yeah, it's interesting. It's like really similar to that,
It is.
It's how the body is moving its energy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And especially when you get to the higher self and we're doing work like that, sometimes you'll see them even do more. My favorite though, is when they slip into an accent, like if they're from Ireland and they slip into an Irish accent or English or like another Native American. I can always tell before they say they're Native American because they're, or I guess I shouldn't say Native American, I should just indigenous, because they could be any indigenous tribe, like anywhere. But
Right.
the English breaks up into sounds, very much what I would associate with Native American, speaking English. And I'll always know as soon as they start talking where they are and who they are, because they take on that persona, like they tap into that energy, and sometimes they'll point to things like look it over there, there's something over here, I'm watching it go by, and you'll in their arms will just like, and I'm gonna get that, and they have no idea. They have no idea. Sometimes people just break down crying. It's the energy release. It's the energy flowing. That was my whole point to all of that, is the energy just flows constantly. It's at a much higher frequency when you're in that state. So there's a whole other issue and a whole other topic, but I think we can wait on that one. Because that could be I'll give you a hint. Imprint versus blueprint.
Oh, yes. Let us talk about that on the next time. But
Yes.
oh my goodness, when people say, I was, we have to have a conversation.
Do you know how many, just as a little teaser, do you know how many Queen Elizabeth I I've had?
I always wanted the Abigail Adams. Turns out it never happened.
I know. I'd love to get, I would love to hang out with like an Amelia Earhart.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. So who?
She was like the coolest of cool.
Yep, imprinting energies. Yeah, my people on the TikTok are talking about how they've read about Dolores Cannon and the imprinting energies, and actually, I've had people come and say, I'm pretty convinced that my daughter is my grandmother reincarnated, and I'm like, I don't think so. I don't say that.
But yes, but it does happen, and they do imprint their energy in.
But what they showed me, and this was right after you and I started talking about it, right after we started talking about it, that my next client, it does that. My next client, I was like, oh, okay, because the child acts just like the grandmother, said things, did things, and then we get her under, and she said, and I ask, and then all of a sudden she sees this image of her grandmother literally handing a baton to the soul of her granddaughter or of her daughter, and going, okay, I got it this far, your turn. So that child came in with all this understanding and knowing. So she was an old soul because she took her grandmother's knowledge with her and the energy behind gaining that knowledge. And because apparently this child's a force to be reckoned with. So it's just that knowledge and the imprinting of energy. So it's not like she was her grandmother. She wasn't even an imprint of her grandmother. She was passing the knowledge. But we have had, I'm telling you, and it's so convincing. But what I've told people is like, it doesn't matter if you really were or not. That's the experience you needed to come here and have this experience.
Yeah, but there is something it is nice to know, was I actually that person? You know, because, I had some doubts too when I figured out that I was married to a pivotal person during the Revolutionary War. And I wrestled with that, now I know it's my blueprint energetic field. And not only that, but my sister was the aunt that raised me in that lifetime. And when she would have a QHHT experience, she would go back to that time and see the wedding day or see when she was a young child,
right,
where they grew up, and how different their lives were because they were on Block Island where women wore breeches and rode the horses like a guy, and it's just like, how do you reconcile all that? And so, you come with so many, especially during the time of the American Revolution, there are so many imprints of that, especially now, that have come through. But there's a lot of blueprint energy too. There is one guy I follow that
Yeah.
was every famous warrior there ever was. And I'm like, dude, you are not.
Dude.
So he felt that he probably was. And that's how it comes across.
Yeah.
But it was to help him navigate being a Navy SEAL. Okay, I
Right.
get that, right? But these are imprints, they're not blueprints.
Right.
So
Right. You know
we'll
what
have to get into that some point.
Yeah, we will, because we had that one client who was convinced of all these things, and then we get to the higher self, and he's like, and I've done this, and I've done this, and he was convinced he was some, like, all these famous people. We get to the higher self, and he's like way under, he's way deep. And I said, all right, imprint or actual lived experience? Clear as day. And not really explaining what that meant to this person. Clear as day. They go, imprint, all of them.
See?
I was like, the higher self called you out.
You see, the higher self will always be truthful.
Because he came up and he was like, yeah, see? And I was like, oh, wait till you listen to the recording. Do you want me to explain what imprint energy is? And he was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay.
But it does to the person who is trying to meditate, and it's
Right.
going to feel like an actual
It
experience
feels
that you
real.
had.
And even when
So-
you're under, and that's the whole idea with imprint. And again, we can, this could be a whole deep dive, but just know that an imprint energy is just as important as the lived experience.
And
Because
on
your
that
subconscious will show you what you need
That's
to know.
right. And on that note, that'll be our teaser, because
Yes.
we're going to come back on
We
another
love this.
live stream, and we're going to talk about the difference between the blueprint and the imprint and our experiences with people.
Yes.
I might even bring a little bit more of Dolores Cannon in too.
We should. We love Dolores. I feel like I could just sit and talk to her. I should. You know what? I should, because she's on the other side.
And in fact, we ought to do a session where we actually put you down and you connect into
Bring her
Dolores Cannon, and we
through.
can do it live. We can do it live if you're up for it. Or we can do a recording and see how it goes.
Yeah, if she, I mean, I
She may
never-
not show up. Who knows?
you have to, but remember, you have to surprise me. I can't know that it's going to happen.
Oh, all
So
right.
you have to surprise me, because how I
True.
connect is how that works. So
We'll do it. So coming up in future videos, watch for it. Lorenda and I, we're on it.
all right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Where can people find you, Lorenda?
All over the place. LorendaCarr.com is my website, and all my socials are Lorenda Carr Medium. And just make sure that you're following the correct one. There's lots and lots of scammers out there. So just make sure you're following the correct ones. And don't be offended if I don't follow you back, because it's a safety measure.
Yeah, I've got you scrolling on the bottom. So in mine is SallyKnopp.com. If you want energy healing or clearing, give me a shout on that website and you can schedule through there. And Lorenda and I work together for QHHT. So
Absolutely.
thanks for watching. Bye for
Bye.
now.